Hey, it's Brock. This is my fifth video 5 coming at you. And I'm going to tell you right now that if you don't want to have to sit through this entire thing, I totally understand. I am in the process of working on an assignment that revolves around, here it is, World War II, kind of wrapping things up. And I've divided things into some different topics, like what was going on the home front, advances in technology. Going to talk a little bit about human rights and the exact opposite of that, which is eugenics, trying to eliminate certain kinds of people and raise up others through breeding or genocide, trying to wipe them out. How racism in America was impacted during the war, nuclear weapons. I've been sitting on this for a while, and I was working on making it a persuasive essay and then maybe an informative essay, and I just kind of need to chill. I don't want to do too much here. I don't want to make you do too much. I wrote here that World War II is a really, oh, there's a typo. World War II, capital I, is a really complicated topic that relates to a lot of issues in the present day. It's true of a lot of things, but World War II, it really just like hits everything. And it's obviously something people are interested in because it's a big focus in a lot of US history classes around this country. It's all over the TV. There are movies, documentaries, the History Channel. Like I don't watch the History Channel, but I understand they have a lot of World War II programming. There's just so much, and there really are, like, all of these topics. There's so much to talk about. How Hitler and the Nazis were inspired, their eugenics program, by things that were being done in America. So much to talk about there in terms of forced sterilization, experimentation, especially and specifically on Black peoples, like the Tuskegee experiment. Talking about how the author of certain bills and laws that limited immigration of peoples to America because they weren't the right kind of white person or whatever, that inspired the Nazis too. Like, you can talk about that. Talk about the treatment of Black soldiers, and the Great Migration really gets ramped up by World War II as well. Talking about nuclear weapons. Anyway, I am hopefully I'm filming this on Wednesday night. I am right now uh, expecting any moment for this guy to wake up, so I got to go deal with him. So I want to talk about a variety of different topics related to World War II. And if you want to stick around and hear about some of these things, that's great. I'm going to do my best to not, talk forever, but because in general, for me, what I really want my students to walk away is the basic knowledge that's on this screen right now. There was the First World War, there was the Second World War. They were separated by about 20 years. America always ends up joining the Allied powers, which include Great Britain, France, and Russia, which is going to become the Soviet Union during World War I, become communist. And those are all things that we don't get to talk about now, but hopefully you'll learn more about in your world history classes someday. And then Germany is always a member of the opposite side. Central powers in the First War, because they're in the central part of Europe, and then the Axis powers in World War II. And Germany is always kind of, it's not really fair to say they're taking the lead in World War I because they were trying to back up their mans, Austria, Hungary. But bottom line is, if you understand the sides, that America is always on the winning side, and that really benefits America a lot, that's great. If you understand the causes, that's even better. That if you can recall that, that's great. And I've put some videos up where I run down how Germany was treated after World War I, how that helped Hitler, and the series of events that led up to Nazi Germany invading Poland, and then France and Great Britain trying to support them. But then there's obviously so much more there that we're just not going to go into. This is a global war, so I like to show this slide that has the planet Earth on it. And this red box is highlighting like one of the major theaters, the European theater. So I've got this bigger map. It really doesn't do justice to what was going on in North Africa. There's a lot of fighting in North Africa that happens in the first part of this war. And the Allied powers have to take North Africa before they can go to Italy, and then they can go into France to get to Germany. So this map is really showing the beginning, before the war even truly begins, when you have, and actually that's not even true because the map even clearly says 1939. That's when the war starts. I'm sorry, I lied already. You can see these areas that Germany had annexed, and then they invade Poland. Boom, war is on. I wish we had more time and there was a better way to do some of these things, but this is where we are. I didn't get a chance maybe to teach you the word appease very well. I think this was in the last one though. But the war, you know, sparks off because Hitler is appeased. But again, I'm talking about old stuff. I'm going to be moving forward, not just talking about old stuff. You know, Pacific Theater, something that we're not going to get to go in depth here. This is also messed up. Pacific Theater also largely involves the United States. And that's something that we definitely have to spend some time talking about here. And I'm going to, like I said, throw that assignment out there and just probably make it an option, like choose a topic to research or find a reading, or I don't know, I got to figure that out. But let's see. So Japan is going to be imperialist, just like Germany was and so many others. They want to create the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere is what they call it, where Japan is going to take the lead and unite these Asian nations under their banner. But that involves taking places over. So they invade China, they invade Korea, and it's not gentle or nice. One thing I can tell you right now is we're going to talk about some nasty things that have happened specifically from this time period and others. Japan is going to attack the United States at Pearl Harbor, and that is what's going to launch America into the war. And strangely enough, Germany just instantly declares war on America when Japan does. And so that takes America into war with Germany. And you kind of wonder what would have happened if the Nazis hadn't immediately declared war with their ally, if America might have stayed out of the European theater for a little bit longer or something. But, you know, Pearl Harbor is related to 9/11 in so many different ways. And what's interesting is the different kind of cause of each one. Pearl Harbor was kind of we know they're going to come at us eventually. The Americans have been doing things to limit our access to materials that we need for building wartime weaponry and airplanes and ships and things like that. And September 11th, as an act of terrorism, is meant to send a message about, you know, stop messing with the Middle East. Specifically, Iraq was cited as a place where there was a lot of suffering because of embargoes and other things. So both of these events are meant to send a message. And in the case of Pearl Harbor, though, like it really is like they know there's a greater war coming. And you really have to ask this question of, did the terrorists on September 11th know that they were going to be starting this like war on terror where America is just pouring trillions of dollars into conflicts in other parts of the world? Anywho, here's a nice little image of President Roosevelt addressing Congress, after the day after Pearl Harbor was attacked. I did post a video of this speech where the president talks at length about what happened and why this attack was going to launch us into war. He was asking Congress to declare war, which it is Congress's job to declare war. And that's a whole other can of worms that I wish that we could get into, because since World War II, there's been a lot of different times when we were at war, or it's just an armed conflict that we're trying to be like peacekeepers, or who knows what's going on. Uh-oh, he stirs. Am I in trouble? Oh no. Might be game over, folks. Oh yeah. All right. I'm gonna pause my video. We're gonna talk about the end of the war. Like, we're skipping everything in between right now with Pacific Theater and everything else. And I'm gonna resume this in the morning. I'm trying to find where I can stop my recording. I'm not seeing it. And I'm back. Okay. I don't remember where I was. Oh yeah. So the course of the war, you know, it's a war, it's a back and forth, but this idea of how the war ended, I was actually interested. I had a lot of students who were asking me questions about Hitler when they did different assignments, and they did have some knowledge about the fact that he ended up taking his own life when the city of Berlin in Germany was being invaded by the Soviets, probably because he was afraid of what they would do to him. But when the war in Europe comes to an end, things are still going on in the Pacific, and America is still at war with Japan. And ultimately, the war is ended when Japan is bombed twice using nuclear weapons. So there were two bombings, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And there's a really cool website called Nuke Maps where you can see how those weapons would impact different parts of the world if they were dropped there. So I got this great image of the impact if it was dropped in Detroit. And off the top of my head, I don't necessarily remember all of the details. I believe the red line here is like the immediate blast and destruction. But anyway, it's a really cool website. I'll make sure to post that link. But one interesting thing you can consider as well is how our nuclear weapons have grown over time. So for this left image, you've got the Nagasaki bomb. Then in the middle, you got one of the most powerful weapons that we've tested. And on the far right, you've got the nuclear weapon we have the most of right now. I really need to, I wish I had thought to check this slide. It's probably 3 years old, 4 years old. And so I had that America has about 4,000 nuclear warheads. How accurate that is now after about 3 or 4 years, I'm not sure. Yeah, there's a whole conversation that we would have in class about was this terrorism? Because you really have to remind yourself that at the time, no one knew what this weapon was really going to do except the scientists who had tested it and the government officials who approved it and had that information because it was super, super top secret. I'm see if I can find a podcast. There was one I remember listening to. I don't know overall like what it was about, but I remember they talked about one of the secret labs where they were building the bomb or building parts for the bomb. And there were all these young scientists that were hooking up and having kids. And it was a top secret military base that no one knew about. And so it seemed really mysterious that kids were being born in this random, like nowhere place. So they had to like create a fake town, all this stuff. But anyway, there are all these conversations we could have about what were other things that America could have done other than dropping this bomb. Japan was given a warning of sorts, but did they really know what to expect? So we could talk about what our other options could have been. Maybe dropping the bomb on an island where there was no one, and the Japanese would have been able to see it and know, like, oh, this is real. Some have discussed the idea of, what about an invasion that would have cost American soldiers their lives, and that was usually the argument for using the bomb, is that by doing that we were able to call for an unconditional surrender. So it's very complicated and leads to this whole other developing conversation in the Cold War, which is a unit we have to skip, about brinksmanship and mutually assured destruction, that these countries of the USA and the Soviet Union are stockpiling nuclear weapons, and there's this constant threat of if one gets launched, the rest will get launched, and this just like total destruction that can happen if you hit first. Another thing, I wanted to throw this on here, if you want to pause it so you can really read this, but it was a proposal for, and I just love mentioning this idea, gosh, in the name, I didn't put the name on this slide, unfortunately, but a proposal for how to deal with nuclear weapons and giving the president, like making them really think about the choice of what they do. Was it a scientist or an economist or philosopher? They proposed putting the codes to launch our nuclear weapons in a capsule and implanting that in someone's heart or next to their heart. And so if the president had to fire nuclear weapons, they'd have to recognize that they were going to be killing all kinds of people, and they would have to like actually kill this one person. Blood literally on the president's hands and the White House carpet. It's an interesting idea, right? Because it can be easy to think about flipping a switch. And there's another podcast I might try to include about when there was once a miscommunication and someone got the order to fire nuclear weapons and he refused. And it turns out it was a mistake. And it talked about like this idea of like actually what he had done though like was wrong, but it was right because it was a mistake, but he was supposed to follow his orders, and it's all complicated, right? I can't check and see how long I've got on this video at this point. Other things that I'll include in that assignment where maybe you can inform me what you learned about it or tell me why in the future you hope teachers talk more about it, talking about post-traumatic stress disorder and how soldiers are affected by war. I think this is a very important topic, and it's something that PTSD affects more than just soldiers. Anyone who experiences a traumatic event deals with PTSD. We would maybe talk about how much money our government spends on our veterans and trying to teach PTSD. And we could also talk about the history of PTSD. So if you go back to World War I, they call it shell shock. And then if you go further and further on, the terminology changes, our understanding of what it is changes. The original idea is that soldiers are just, you know, upset about large explosions and new weaponry, and then it becomes they're just tired from battle. And we more and more start to realize, like, no, like they're actually dealing with really serious issues that need to be addressed in a different way. Oh, man, I got him back down, but he's rolling and tossing. I really want to get this video done tonight, not tomorrow, because he has been super fussy. And that's one reason why I haven't been able to do the video up until now. Although also, I'm just like, I hate this. I want to like really be at school and teach this. I want to cap this off with a discussion that's really important to me. And I am going to warn you, I'll give you a trigger warning. This can be upsetting stuff. You don't want to